A big thank you to our sponsor, iFixit, who fights for your right to repair and makes really cool tools in the process. If you need to fix your phone, laptop, or even a vacuum, iFixit has thousands of parts, tools, and free guides.
Mercury, Mercury Stardust. She's a beacon of hope in the darkest night. Mercury, Mercury Stardust. She'll teach you how to make it all alright.
Hey there, hi, my name is Mercury, and I'm the trans Handy Ma'am. My pronouns are she, her, and I teach compassionate DIY. We're here to help renters, LGBTQIA members, and anyone who's feeling left out in a DIY space. Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals, thank you so much for listening to the Handy Ma'am Hotline. I'm so excited for this episode, and of course, as always, I am joined by the amazing, the extraordinary, the absolutely gorgeous Maggie Conrad! Oh, Maggie, you hear that noise? I think we just broke through the glass ceiling, Maggie.
Woohoo!
Yeah, Maggie! You are so fine. You destroyed gender norms. Yeah!
I love how now, like, every week I'm just like, oh, what the fuck is going to happen now?
Yeah, 100%. 100%, Maggie. I also want you to know that last night Matt texted me. And Matt, our sound engineer, was like, okay, is there anything, like, stupid you want me to do this week? And then I sat there for like 30 minutes being like, what the fuck are we doing? Oh, my glass ceiling. You wait for next week. We got a good one next week. We got a really good one.
Next one is homemade. I had to make it myself.
You had to make, ooh, Maggie.
Wow, I get a homemade intro.
You guys,
I feel special.
You guys wait for next week. The intro is going to be wild, if I say so myself. Anyways, I just like, this is what the podcast is now. The podcast is just me alerting to inside jokes for the next podcast. Okay, for those who are just tuning in for the very first time, this is the Handy Ma'am Hotline where we take questions. This week I think is primarily just voicemail messages, what we're really excited about. We take voicemail messages, and I have never heard these questions before, and I answer the DIY questions in real time. Right?
Yep.
Okay. And sometimes I'm really good. And sometimes I'm extremely bad.
Never.
Okay, well, don't say it like you have sarcasm attached to it.
That's just the tone of my voice.
Okay. That being said, Maggie.
Yes.
Do you want to... Oh, wait. I guess we haven't talked about how our weeks was. How was your week, Maggie?
Great. How long has it been since we did the fundraiser? I feel like that was just yesterday.
It was like
was that a week ago?
It was a week and a half ago.
Wow.
So
yeah, still kind of like.
For those who didn't know, we raised $2,259,000 for trans healthcare by trans people.
For trans people.
Woo-woo-woo! And it's through an organization called Point of Pride. If you are someone who would like to access gender-affirming care but haven't been able to, you can go to pointofpride.org and you can learn more about how you can apply for their funding.
Yeah.
And they're a wonderful organization. And because we raised $2.2 million, so many more people are going to be able to access their gender-affirming care. And some people were saying, oh, yeah, but like, I wish we were doing real mutual aid. This is real mutual aid, and we're doing it in such a large volume. There is no way for us as individuals to take $2 million to have to pay taxes on it then, and then do that all ourselves, and then do all that labor of like finding people.
Well, and then the people would have to pay
structure.
taxes on that money.
Yep.
When going through Point of Pride, they do all the vetting and they pay the surgeons directly, and they're able to advocate for their patients to get discounts on those surgeries. So even, some of the people, like, they can't get the whole surgery funded, but at least it's at a discount and they get a portion of it. But, Aiden even said last week that their 2023 surgery recipients have now been fully funded, whereas they were only going to be able to be partially funded before. The funds have already started going into their pockets. Some people are going to get refunds. Some people are going to, have extra money now for their aftercare, everything like that. So it's really amazing work that they're doing.
It's really like an extraordinary thing that we'll be able to do for hopefully years to come. And
Yeah.
I want to say thank you to everyone who donated. It means the most thing in the world to me. It's just, I'm like lost at words
Mm-hmm.
because it's so amazing. 60,000 people donated.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, we've had a week off. I feel real good. Thank you to everyone who listened to the best of episode last week that I have not listened to, so I have no idea.
Matt did a good job. It was very funny.
I heard people told me it was hilarious. I just didn't have the emotional wherewithal to be able to do it. But all that being said, Maggie, are you ready to get some cues and we can fill them with our A's?
Let's fill those A's.
Oh, see, I instantly don't like that. We got to think of a good catchphrase. If you have a good catchphrase for us to start this section of the podcast,
Text us.
Text us at what number, Maggie?
608-205-8768.
Yeah, text us your idea. What would be a good transition period? Like from that opening to the the Q part of the show. What is that? Right? Is it like, ooh, the Q cave? That does not sound good. I don't like the Q cave. Ooh, everyone, open your legs up for the A's. No, I don't like that. We're barely 5 minutes into the show, and we are completely off the rails. Can we please
play a question, Matt?
Let's get back on the rails and answer some A's. Wait, Q's. Answer some Q. God damn it. Answer some Q's.
Hi, Mercury. My name is Kim. Pronouns are she, her. And I am just across the southern cheeseland border from you in northern cornland. So hello from your southern neighbor. First of all, I just wanted to say I I watched your live stream last night for trans healthcare, and I'm so excited to see that you all met your goal 3 times. That's unbelievable, and I'm so happy for you and the trans community. Second of all, I am very lucky to have a husband who has taught me a lot of home repair and how to use certain tools and things like that I was never able to learn growing up. I never had the opportunity. So we've been doing some bathroom home repairs, and he's been teaching me a lot of, I guess, simpler, handy tools that I could use and tricks that I could do myself. I purchased a bidet, and I watched your video on how to install it, and I'm really thinking I want to try to do it by myself. And I'm pretty confident I can, but I just wanted to get your opinion on, is this a reasonable project, I guess, for someone who's new to DIY to try to take on by themselves? And what other maybe, I guess, slightly more than beginner projects you recommend for someone who's just starting to feel comfortable doing DIY projects by themselves? So thank you so much, and I love your podcast. Thanks.
Ooh, you know how much I love questions that revolve people's butts.
Mm-hmm.
And anything about a bidet makes me so happy. I am a big proponent that I think very strongly everyone should have a bidet.
Yep.
I'm all for, like, universal butt healthcare. And I really think that you got to make sure that booty is, ready to go. And I think you're way ready to go with a bidet in your toilet. So that being said, is it something that someone who is like, maybe not as familiar with tools or familiar with how-tos, is it something that people are accessible to be able to do? That's the question, right? Mm-hmm. Maggie, as someone who's seen me talk about bidets multiple times and seen me do videos on this, would you say that a bidet is fairly accessible? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially if you're just doing like a cold water bidet where you just are attaching it to the supply line that's already there. You're not messing with anything. Yeah, 100%. Especially if you look at Mercury's videos and search Mercury Stardust bidet.
Oh, God. I love that I am associated with so much tushy. You know what I mean? I'm associated with so much butt.
Mercury Star butt.
Mercury Star butt, But yeah, no, I think that bidets are various. I think that if we're talking, I always hate ranking them.
Yeah.
But if we're entering this, this world for the first time, and you have, like if this is Dungeons and Dragons, and you don't have a skill set above, like, let's say you have like a level 3, craftsman, ability, right? And so it's good enough to maybe understand some things and the whole tools, but maybe not necessarily more, right? I will say that a bidet is probably like you could roll a dice and roll a 4 and be okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I hope that was accessible and hope that makes sense for people. For those who are not into D&D, basically what I just said is that it's on the lower capability side.
Yeah.
That they actually make them in a way that are fairly accessible. Like, they make them that way. I will say, if you just get the cold water bidet, I want to put a disclaimer out there.
Yeah.
Cold water bidets don't necessarily mean you're going to have like freezing water up
not
your
at
butt.
all.
That isn't necessary because most toilets in the United States, unless you're in like Alaska or Maine or even most Wisconsin's plumbing doesn't get that cold throughout the year. But the average temperature of water in the toilet or water in the sewer system or in plumbing is about 58 degrees. The average. Now, it varies wherever you are, but essentially 58 degrees is usually what you feel, okay? Yeah. If it's in the dead of winter, yeah, I mean, it's a little colder, but it won't, it won't feel that bad.
We have a cold water bidet and was totally fine this winter.
Yeah, I have a warm water bidet. I never use the warm water because to me, having warm water shut up my butt is way more startling than cold. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel natural.
It's a little too opening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was one time I shot it up real good. And that bidet had like a scope on it. And it like shot right up my butthole, And I like, it was like a little warm. Like, not a little warm. It was pretty hot. It was like coffee hot. And it shot up there. And holy, that was a way to wake up in the morning. That was like, my morning poops have never been more disastrous. But yeah, so anyways, and now I just gave everyone a visual. And I want you to know I'm so sorry. But to answer your question, yeah, I think it's very accessible. I would say that if I was you, I would err on the side of caution and buy something a little bit more affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Not affordable. Buy a little bit more expensive, right? The affordable ones have cheaper plastic casing, and the ones that range between like $25 to $50, they can fall apart. Okay. And you could over tighten them and crack something. Mm-hmm. I think you're better off getting a medium tier. We have a really expensive one. We have a Tushy, which is like $130 or $125. Mm-hmm. We know we like it, right? Like, we know we like it. And our first one that was like $45 broke. So we're like, let's just pay more money for something that we know we genuinely like, that's fairly easy to take apart. Yeah. And we can keep to one apartment to another apartment because we are moving in 2 months.
Right.
So, and that would be my suggestion, is buy cheap if you can't really necessarily afford it. You can also get a portable one and try if you want to get a portable one. I think portable ones are $25 or $20, and see if it works for you. And remember this, when you put it all together, if you turn it on, it will shoot the wall. It will shoot the wall, and don't.
When you're testing it out.
Yes, I was standing in front of it, and I was like, I didn't understand that it literally shoots like right up on an angle, so it's gonna miss the toilet seat. It's gonna hit your where your butt is. Like, of course it is. But I turned it on, and it shot me right in the fucking face, like boom. But that plumbing water.
I think I did that the first time I turned it on too. Yeah. When we first had our first one.
I feel like there should be a disclaimer on that thing that says, beware of shooting bidet when trying for the first time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't in the handbook, is all I'm trying to say. But anyways, I think we answered that cue really good.
Yeah.
Okay. So
do the bidet.
Do the bidet. Clean that butt.
Hello, my name is Jessica, although I prefer to go by Princess Rainbow Kitty Sparkles, and I use she, her pronouns. I live alone in an apartment, and I was wondering about how I could change a burnt-out light bulb in those overhead fixtures where there are no visible screws. Like, I can't figure out how to get the glass off. So, yeah, that's my question. Thank you so much. You're an awesome person, and I'm really excited to listen to your podcast and be a part of it. Yeah, okay, bye.
You have the best name out of anyone who's ever called us. If we were giving out trophies for best names, Maggie, can you repeat their name to me? Because their
I know I'm going to get this out of order, but yes. I think it was Rainbow Princess Kitty Sparkles.
That's amazing. That's the best name I've ever heard in my entire life. That's amazing. But all that being said, Maggie and I have a little bit of a disagreement, okay? Maggie mouthed to me that, they're talking about a recessed light. And then I said, no, they're not. They're talking about a boob light. So, Maggie, which one do you think it is? A booby light or a recessed light? And it's kind of funny because they're generally the complete opposite.
Yeah, but they both don't have visible screws, so maybe do both.
Yeah, but the
Just in
way that she described it would make me think that it was like a booby light, because if it was a recessed light, why would you think it was? Because sometimes a recessed light doesn't have to have, you can just reach up in there and take the bulb out. Recessed lights aren't always closed off.
Right.
And also recessed lights, if they're the ones that are closed off, tend to be LED. So they're whole units, where with this bulb in a booby light, and I say a booby light.
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah. Oh! Everybody, please record that as your ringtone. Oh, my God. Unprovoked. Maggie said I was right. Oh, I have never wanted to bathe myself in victory as much as this right now.
I'm pretty sure I've said that before.
Yeah, I mean, I never get tired of it. But for those who don't know, booby lights are the lights that look like a tit, to be honest. You know,
boob with a nipple.
Yeah, and if you have the lights that don't have a nipple, like this is like, no nipple booby light, right? That means that you probably it still has to come off, right? And the way that these typically come off is they twist off. So there's a separation of the glass to the base, and people are always like, yeah, but there's no like set screw, or there's nothing there. There's nothing that turns it in. Trust me when I say that they literally have to, right? They have to come apart. So, and sometimes they get stuck together because of high heat, right? Sometimes it'll be plastic that's like around the base. And when that glass is like fitted into the plastic, sometimes it like sinks in, and the heat from the light will actually make it whatever. And also, like, you don't take those off. They're not made to be off and on over and over again.
Right.
And the glass is not always cut in a perfect way either. There could be edges and stuff that was left on when they made the glass. So this is imperfect stuff to begin with, right? But the way that I would do it is I would grab it from both sides. They're equal apart, right? You got one on the left side, one on the right side, and your hands are equally apart. And then you give consistent pressure, right? You're twisting, and you don't stop twisting. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to do like a sudden burst over and over again.
Right.
Like where you go like twist, twist,
like
twist,
wiggling
twist.
it.
Yeah, you want to do like twist. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a very good visual.
The longer that you keep the pressure of twisting the booby light, right? The more likely to get it off if you don't have the arm strength, right? As someone who's like lost a lot of her arm strength because of like T blockers and estrogen, I will tell you that I do struggle now with opening things like this. And I would say if that does not work, right, there's other methods that might help you. Like you can get grippy towels, and those grippy towels might help you with your hands, get you more of a twist, you know. And if all else fails, you know, the option is to crack it, take it down, and then replace the light, right? That is,
they're not that expensive.
No, they're really not. They're like $30, $20 sometimes, those lights themselves. Or the lid. You can get a replacement lid sometimes. Not all the time, depending on what kind of booby light you got. But they are replaceable. Now, if you have that kind of have a tit, if you have a booby light and there's like a tit right in there, you should put a tassel on it because it's fucking hilarious. Always put a pasty with a tassel on it. It's always funny. It feels like your titty light is doing burlesque, and it makes you laugh every time. It's even a bigger plus if it is a ceiling fan that has a titty light. That's even
and then
funny.
It jiggles.
It jiggles, and it's so funny. Okay. All that being said, if it has one of those things in the middle that looks like a tit, okay, you can twist the cap off, lefty-loosey, and then that will reveal a bolt that is basically going through the whole thing. That is just this long, threaded bolt that you can take the cover off and make sure you're good to go. Now, if all of that is good, now we did all the two that I think it's gonna be, one of those two. Now, if you're like, yeah, but there's like this little hole that's on the side, and when I look in that little hole, there seems to be some type of Allen key hole.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? That's called a set screw. And that set screw is somewhere on the base. Now, before you twist it, like we were just talking about, absolutely make sure there's not a set screw.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go to twist, it will absolutely crack, right? You will crack that glass. And this is where you should wear safety glasses just to make sure, be careful. But again, you're going to be okay 9 times out of 10. It's just that freak thing can be a disaster. But yeah, booby lights, they're really common in apartments. Really common in apartments.
Very standard.
It's because they're that construction grade stuff. They're that low grade stuff. They're easy to make at high volumes. And, when apartments need to, get a whole lot of the same unit, that's the one they go with. They also are known to flicker. Like, they're known that these fixtures typically have, really bad soldering. And at the base of where the socket is to the wiring, it can fall apart pretty easy. There was a lot of times where I went to go replace the bulb, and I would just flick the bulb. And just flicking the base of the bulb or by the socket, it would come back on. And then you would be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What? And it's because it's bad wiring. It has more to do with that. And then sometimes
because it's so cheap.
If you're on the first floor and you got an apartment above you and you got kids running back and forth, the chances of that soldering to come loose inside of the wiring is really common. It happens a lot. I would say out of those booby lights, I would say it was 50-50, I think, damn near, of me replacing the whole unit or replacing a bulb. And that's why I just don't necessarily understand why landlords go that route.
Yeah, because then you're just buying it 3 times, 4 times.
I've said this so many times, but landlords really fall into this place where a lot of landlords want to go with cheaper materials. Like, let's say the handrails in your bathroom, right? Those little towel rails that are just like, aluminum, right? And if you go to pull them, they almost always fall apart on the sides. They don't rip out of the wall. They can rip out of the wall, but typically that's if it's all one piece, right? Well, what landlords have told me over and over and over again, the reason why they buy lower materials like that is because you can always replace material. It's hard to replace pieces of the wall or harder to replace the door and whatever. But the problem I have with that is that then every fucking tenant that I'm doing so much work no matter what. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're always doing low grade equipment, always, that means even the best tenant is going to have something broken in it.
Yeah.
But to me, there's more good tenants than there are bad ones. And there's just this constant fear of making sure it's us versus them all the time. And that's such a stupid route to go for your tenants. I've said this over and over again, empower your tenants.
Yeah.
Empower them. If they have something that keeps breaking down and they want to learn, fucking show them. You know what I mean? Like, if it's a garbage disposal and all it is an Allen key underneath and a reset button, then show them that. Do you know what I mean? But if it happens 4 or 5 times a week, you could be like, oh, they're fucking around. They don't know what they're doing. You could just spend the time to show them. It's why I think that picture rails should be standard.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In apartments. Because instead of finding a way that works best for renters not to make holes, what we just tell them is, don't make holes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of giving them something that they can actually use.
But how is the renter, the tenant, supposed to make the space feel like their space?
Yeah.
A tenant's always going to err on the side of doing what's best for them, right? And making their home feel like a fucking home, right? So, in my opinion, I think picture rails should be standard in every single modern apartment. And I don't understand why they're not.
Because they're not looking at it from the perspective of what is best for the tenant.
Yep. No, for real. They just want to make a box and people go in the box.
Live in the box.
And also, if you're a landlord and you're like, well, I do better than that, then we're not talking about you. right? But also, like, this is typically a problem that's in larger
Yeah.
apartment complexes. Because the larger complexes buy in bulk, so they buy cheaper material, and they have like the same booby light in every single apartment, and they buy like 40 extra.
Mm-hmm.
So when one goes out, they just replace the whole fucking unit instead of like replacing the bulb, and that is pretty common. Our inventory room was wild. It was like, 5, of the same ceiling lamp that went out of, you couldn't get it anymore. It would get disconnected. It got what is that word?
Discontinued.
It got discontinued like 5 years ago, and it had like a recall, but we still had the fucking fan. You know what I mean? But that's what a lot of those places are like. It's
Yeah.
like we buy in bulk, so we have extra, so when it fails, we don't have to buy it again.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get a discount right now. So, anyways, so to answer your question, oh my God, that was like 20 minutes ago. I would say make sure you look for the recessed light, keep constant pressure, and then pray a little bit, and you should be good.
Yeah. Boobs and butts.
Boobs and butts. Maggie, we were doing so good, Maggie. This was a high-class podcast,
No,
and you brought
not
it
at all.
down, and now I feel
It wasn't my fault.
God, Maggie. I tell you what. Okay, everyone. Next question, please.
Hey, Mercury. I'm Frank. My pronouns are they, them, and I wanted to first say how excited I am to have learned that you've got a podcast and that I can't wait to keep learning more from you. I also can't wait for your book to arrive when it comes out in a few months and already took care of my pre-order. So to anyone else listening, make sure you get on that if you haven't already. But anyway, I'm a renter, and with the weather warming and all the rain we've been having where I live, I'm now smelling a funky, like maybe moldy smell, specifically from the vents, and also a hole under my kitchen cabinets, like the gap of dead space in the corner, which also connects to the space under the tub in the bathroom on the other side of the wall. Is there anything I can or should do as a tenant to check it out or address the problem, or do I need to call the office first thing? And if I call them, what do I say to get them to take it seriously, and what might they do to fix it, or just like slap a Band-Aid on it, and that I would maybe need to be concerned about? So for now, I've got the vents closed up as much as possible, and I'm keeping the windows open and an air filter running, but it definitely seems like there's more to be done. I'm just not sure where to start. Thanks a million. Love you and all your content, and congrats on the success with Jory and Point of Pride at your recent fundraiser. Have a good day. Bye.
I feel like Frank is like an audience plant, right? Like, I just want to say, first and foremost, Frank, thank you for plugging my book, Safe and Sound, A Renter's Friendly Guide to Home Repair. It's available right now on Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble, Walmart. It's available basically wherever you get your favorite books. And it comes out in August, but we are planning on trying to get the book to have 10,000 copies already sold by the end of the month of April. As of recording this right now, only 1 week into having the book released in pre-order, we're already at 5,000 copies.
Yeah.
So we're doing really well for how early we are in the game. So I want to say thank you to everyone who already bought a book. I also want to say, Frank, this is such a good question. Like, thank you. There's so many things I want to say here. First and foremost, let's talk about the procedure in which you have with your landlord, okay? Like, it sounds like you haven't talked to your landlord about this specific issue yet. So I say you document this issue, right? You email your landlord, you get stuff going on, you ask them about the molding issue, you ask them if there's any type of mitigation they can do, you ask them about the hole between the bathtub and the kitchen, and you kind of see what you can get going. If they kind of like really drag their feet in this is when I say you take it to the next step. You fucking put matters in your own hands. But no one can give you shit if you fucking, I mean, they're going to still give you shit, but they're not going to give you as much shit if you tried. Do you know what I mean? So what I would believe, what I think the best route to do here is A, get it documented, and B, then as far as what big the gap between the wall and the tub that then leads to the kitchen does consume me, because we're talking about some type of like, I'm not saying that is the issue you're having with molding. I don't know if that is. It's very hard to tell from just a voice message if that is one of the places that make it bad, because the way they design bathtubs with an air exhaust system typically above the bathtub helps to mitigate the moisture and the heat that is brought into your bathtub, into your bathroom, right? Now, in the kitchen, they operate differently, right? If you have a situation where you have like a stove top that has a fan, right, you can help get the airflow happening in there by turning on the fan. And maybe turning on the fan and turning on the bathroom fan, maybe both of those going simultaneously might help the issue. I don't know if that's really the issue. Do you know what I mean? As the weather is getting warm, you can see an increase of mold and growing, right? But then it isn't like isolated to that, right? Like
It's in events, too.
yeah, it can happen in events too. You're absolutely right. But it's not just isolated to when the weather gets warmer, because it's really about your apartment and about your home inside and the way that you're able to make it comfortable for mold. The higher the humidity, the more mold will grow. So if you have a humid space that is very humid, especially in a bathroom or in a kitchen where humidity kind of rides because you're cooking or because you're showering, if that is the case, then we are talking about trying to mitigate that moisture after the fact. Now, this can be about running the fans 20 minutes before and 20 minutes after, like we always talk about on the podcast, right? Or it can be getting a dehumidifier and trying to stop it from growing and stopping at the source. Now, in a kitchen, that gets a little bit harder, right? You know, putting a dehumidifier in a kitchen. But I think after everything is cleaned up, after everything is good in the kitchen, I think that's when you put a dehumidifier in there and you run that overnight. And even if you do it 8-9 hours a night, I think that would be, for the best. Now, can dehumidifiers, be used in the bathroom as well? People always ask me that question. 100% dehumidifiers are absolutely great in the bathroom, okay? Sometimes we don't have a lot of counter space, so sometimes you've got to make space, right? Like get an end table or something in there or like a stool and put it in there. That is kind of the best route sometimes. But in my opinion, dehumidifiers are a great way for renters to avoid to have that pesky mold that just doesn't go away. And crappy rentals, crappy apartments always have mold. There's just like no way it shapes around it, okay? A landlord, at the very least, should be putting lacquer over it and then painting it with like 2 mold-killing primers and then putting the finish coat on top of there, right? To help seal it up. Sometimes that's not even done. Do you know what I mean? So my thought process is do the dehumidifier and then top it all off with some bleach-free formula mold killer. We've talked about this before, especially get the kind that's safer in your kitchen, right? Now, you're going to be eating around food and stuff, so I want you to be more mindful of that than we typically would be in other cases, right? But I do think you want to go that route. You might even want to go the route of like wrapping some things up in plastic just to make sure. But typically you spray that on there, right? You spray that on the wall. You let it sit for 15, 20 minutes. And then you come with a wet rag that has a mixture of vinegar and water in it, right? And maybe use some dish soap to add some cleansiness to it. And you just wipe it down. And you do that 2 to 3 times a week for about 3 to 4 weeks. And that, with the dehumidifier, can mitigate this. It won't solve the problem, okay? It won't solve the problem. And if you're wondering, Mercury, what brand should I get, though, for the spray? That's the thing. Depending what state you're in, I can't tell you what brand you should get because the brand I would get is Mold Killer, right? Mold Killer is one of my favorite brands. You got Mold and Mildew Armor. Make sure you get the bleach-free one, though, because bleach doesn't kill mold like we always talk about on this podcast. But I think the big thing is in some states, they restrict what chemicals you can use. And in California, you can get some of the products we're talking about. So if you need something that is going to work, 100% pure vinegar might be the best route because vinegar will at least, not like, people always say it kills. It doesn't really kill. It neutralizes the mold, and it will stop it from at least spreading for that right now. You know what I mean? So that's my hot take. That's what I would think would work in this instance.
Would you be able to spray that like in the vents or because you have to wipe it off, right?
Yeah. So, okay. If we're talking about it being in the vents, like I think they talked about, right? then I do think you can spray in there and let it sit for a little bit. Though the instructions are going to vary from whatever kind. There is mold killing sprays out there that are made for metal. Okay, so if that's what we're talking about, that would be the next route I would go. Okay, so does that answer the cue, Maggie? Do you have any input
I think
on
so.
that one?
That makes sense. But yeah, I also think one thing to consider is maybe checking and make sure that all of your filters have been changed recently,
That's a
because
good one, too.
sometimes it might not necessarily be in the vent. It could be in the HVAC unit itself. So maybe talk to your landlord and making sure that those return vents and furnace filters are being changed.
Absolutely, I agree. The filters are a really good catch, Maggie. Is there anything else you would add?
No,
No.
I don't know. I think you covered it.
I covered it real good. I covered it like the banana peel on a banana. Oh, boy. Not my best work.
Well, and now we have boobs and butts and books.
Boobs, butts, and books. Where does that come from? Who thought of that? The triple B's?
Well, I don't know, because the first one was about butts. The second question was about the boob light. And now this person mentioned your book.
Wow, boobs, butts, and books. Thank you for listening to the boobs, butts, and books. I'm so happy we're doing this podcast today. Today, let's talk about one of the three subjects. Okay, Maggie, are you ready for the next cue?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Hi, Mercury. My name's Tori. My pronouns are she, they. I just went through a bathroom renovation, and it is all finished now. Had a little bit of hiccups here and there, but in the meantime, while we were getting our bathroom done, we were using our basement shower and it's just a shower. So we were using that for my husband and I and my two boys, and we noticed we never really used this bathroom a whole lot. It's more like an emergency bathroom, if you know what I mean. But we noticed that on the hot water knob, there's drips of water coming out. And I think I know what I need to do. I feel like I need to either replace it because it might be crusty, I forget whatever that's called, or it might just need a new seal around it. But I was wondering if you could help me out with that. And I know that you've got a lot of calls, but I appreciate any help. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye.
Okay, Tori, you are in luck. Okay. So you are talking about something called a hot water stem. Okay. I know you're talking about a hot water stem because you said a hot water valve, which means this is a separate valve from the cold water, which means it's not a cartridge. It is a stem. Now, what is a stem for those who are listening for the first time and never heard me talk about this? A stem is basically a mechanism that controls the water coming into your sink or your tub or your shower or whatever, okay? And that stems are built for temperature. Some stems are built for heat and some stems are built for cold. Cartridges are built for both, okay? But the way that the stem is built is that when it twists in a certain way, the water comes right through it. Basically, it just regulates it. It just basically keeps it from coming in. That's all that a stem does. It's kind of like a valve itself. It's super fucking handy. But now to help you a little bit more here is that stems sometimes have a cover. They'll have a set screw somewhere on the handle that is hiding the actual stem. If you can find the set screw somewhere on there and remove the handle, you'll be able to have access to it. Make sure you turn off the water to that area, right? If you have an isolation valve somewhere, I would absolutely turn off that water to the whole thing. If you can't find it, but you know the water shut off for your whole house, fucking do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could just do that if you can. Now, sometimes you can replace the stem and not actually have the water shoot at you. If you can, sometimes you do. Sometimes you just don't turn on the main water by the tub or whatever,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
So that is an option, but sometimes valves are not built that way. So, I would just play it safe. If you get desperate, you could look into that. But as someone who just recently did wet work and recently did work while plumbing was shooting at our faces. Boy, the pressure is gnarly. So I don't recommend it. But all of that being said, okay, you take that set screw off. Now, my suspicion here is that you said handle, not a knob, a handle.
I actually just remembered they did send a photo.
Oh, Maggie, you buried the lead. Maggie, you buried the lead. There was a photo the whole time.
Well, I mean, it just shows you the setup. So.
Maggie, what?
Sorry.
Maggie, that changes everything.
But you were right. It is a stem.
No, it's a stem, but I wasn't close with the handle. Everyone, I want you to know.
Well, that's what jogged my memory.
Everyone, I want you to know that the whole time I'm struggling to try to figure out what this is. Maggie was sitting on the knowledge of knowing they sent in a fucking photo. Maggie Conrad.
No, I forgot they sent a photo until you said handle instead of knob. And I was like, oh, wait, no, it is a knob. I know that because I saw a photo.
Conrad.
And it jogged my memory.
Okay. So what we're looking at is a knob. It's a knob. It's it's an old-fashioned knob that's plastic.
Right.
And then in the center, there's a cover, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I see it, Maggie, just to make sure? Okay, good. There's a cover in the middle.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the knob. There's something that has it'll say like H or it'll say C, maybe a logo of the company. Like this looks like maybe a Moen. If that is all true, you can take like a pointed knife or, even a toothpick sometimes and pry it like right in the sides and pop that like little piece of plastic.
It's like a little
out.
cap.
And then right in the middle will be a set screw behind that cap that you just popped out. Okay. And that is like the hardest part. The hardest part is that. And then it's just a matter of like taking everything off. And then once you take off the whole handle, then you'll see the stem. But look into the hot water stem videos. You'll see a bunch on YouTube. And there's some great videos on how to replace hot water stem.
If they replace the hot water stem, do they also have to replace the cold water stem? Or doesn't affect, it's still the same knob mechanism on the outside.
Now, in a perfect world, I would say is always best to keep everything similar, but you don't need to at all. You know what I mean? I would say that the thing I would throw out there when you're looking for a replacement of the hot water stem, make sure you get within the realm of like it looking the same and being the same. If you take out the stem and the old one and then go to the hardware store, that is the ideal solution, right? That is the ideal. That's not always possible. But if you're able to do that and then, be okay with you not having that bathtub for a few days or a few hours, and then make sure you can get something that it looks the same and functions the same, then I would say that's the route to go. Because they're not universal. Not all of them are.
Right.
Some are a little bit longer, some are a little bit shorter, some are made for fat ones, some are made for skinny ones. It's really to each their own when it comes to design. But I will say, from what I just saw, it looks like it would be a universal hot water stem that would fix it. Because it looks like either a Delta or a Moen, and those two are the most common brands you'll see in most places. So,
cool.
Yeah. Okay. I think I answered that pretty darn good.
So it's butts and boobs and books and baths.
Wow, Maggie.
I did not plan this ahead of time.
Maggie, I feel like
totally off the cuff.
Okay,
Look at me being off the cuff.
I just want to say, there's never been an episode of this podcast where I feel like Maggie is more against me than this episode. Maggie was you were sitting on knowledge that was so crucial to the question that I cannot stress enough, Maggie. I was sitting here struggling.
No, but Maggie, you were looking like you were so effortless at it.
Oh, thank you. And then Maggie's sitting here mocking me with the 4 B's. Maggie. Okay, let's get the last question of the day. Let's cue me up and let me knock it out of the ballpark. Yeah.
Hi, Mercury and Maggie. My name is Gretchen. My pronouns are she, her. I was wondering, I want to hang some plants from my ceiling, and I was wondering if the magnet trick for finding a stud in a wall, does that work for the ceiling? What do I need to do to make sure I'm hanging something kind of heavy, a plant, from a strong enough place, from a beam or whatever in the ceiling? How do I find the ceiling, and what do I do to make sure that it's attached correctly so that it won't fall down? Thanks. Bye.
Gretchen, you were asking the right questions. You already won an award here, Gretchen. I love when people are thinking about this in a really strategic way. I'm really happy that you're not just hanging it with a wall anchor, like an easy anchor or a wall dog, like these very common wall anchors, because they're not designed to be that heavy or load bearers above your head. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're great for on the wall, but they're not great for being above your head. Do you know what I mean, Maggie?
Mm-hmm.
Like, all these wall anchors are great when they are like to your side, not above your head. So I would say that either you can find a wall anchor that is going to be safe. There are wall anchors that splay out that will be fine for you, okay? And in a plant, if it's like a normal plant that's like maybe like 20 pounds max, then I think you're probably okay to do an anchor that splays out. I would prefer a metal one over plastic components.
Yep.
But since you're asking about studs and you're asking about joists in the ceiling, let's talk about how to find a joist in the ceiling, because it's not always easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? It can be a little bit difficult because joists can go either way. Now, depending on where you are in the United States, joists can go either parallel or opposite of where the door is. Typically, they go parallel with the door. So the entrance to the building, not the entrance to your home, okay? So the entrance to the building, if it all goes parallel to the door, right, then you will be okay, okay? So that means it goes parallel, elongated, away from the door. Now, if you are like, well, I don't know, though, like, I don't know where it is there. I can't really tell. What you can get is some type of larger light, even a lamp in your home, and just point it to the ceiling, and that will sometimes show you ripples. There will be ripples in your ceiling, and they're almost like little waves, because it's very easy for drywall mudders, to make a wall look really good. If you're in a hurry, boy, making the ceiling look good is a whole different story. And it's really easy. It can be really easy to use to be able to find your joist in a wall. Now, everyone always wants to know, what about a stud finder? Stud finders are good. Stud finders are not always easy for everyone to use. And if you have any type of texture on your ceiling, a stud finder is not going to be ideal for you. If you have an acoustic ceiling, or commonly known as a popcorn ceiling, good luck. It is not going to be fun and won't be easy to find a joist with your stud, okay? Now, my preferred method would be the magnet trick, right? But another method would definitely be to use the light trick and to find it that way, right? And once you know where the joists are, you do a pilot hole, and then you will feel the wood, okay? But go slow. Don't push it. Take your time. And once wooden shavings come out, you know you did a good job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the route I would go. Now, sometimes joists don't go in that direction. Sometimes they go the other direction. They, so it all depends. That's why it's a lot harder for me to talk about. So when in doubt, find a wall anchor that splays out. Ooh, that rhymes. When in doubt, find a wall anchor that splays out. Honestly, that's a t-shirt.
Those are the ones that I use. I have hanging plants all over my house, and they have ones that come with like hooks that you can get that are like white or gold.
Yes.
And those work really well for, obviously if the plant's not too heavy, like Mercury said.
100%. 100%. That's what I think too. Like, I think that is your better route. I think that you can use a joist if you're trying to have like a swing in the wall, in the ceiling for what.
That's what I was thinking.
If you're trying to put, a swing in your ceiling,
like a kid's swing.
Yeah, like a kid's swing. If you want to put a kid's swing in the ceiling for no specific reason, Also, a sensory swing
Yeah,
could be a thing.
exactly.
Harmless, good,
I would love one of those.
accessible things. Yeah. All that being said, if you're going that route, then I think you're gonna want to find a joist.
Yeah.
But even that, you want to open up the ceiling, and put an anchor point between two joists
Mm-hmm.
and an eye bolt through it. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a safer route to go than just right off of the joist, because you could split the joist and then you have an issue. Do you know what I mean?
So you're talking about opening up an opening in the ceiling and putting something that connects between the joists?
Yeah.
And then
like
having
a backer, but it's like a supported backer. And then you put like an eye bolt through it and you bolt it, and it's not just screwed in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's way safer.
Yeah. But then you have to replace your ceiling.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's no fun way to do that
Yeah.
without it being. I will say, for safety reasons, I wouldn't just throw an eye bolt in there that is threaded
Right.
and call it a day. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think you're rolling a dice for that to crack. And I will say the disaster that could happen from that is way bigger than how easy it would be.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if you just throw a threaded screw that's holding an eye bolt into the ceiling, and then you just hang, a human on it, right? Especially if it's 1 point, right? You don't know where that eye bolt is in the joist. You don't know if it's on the side. You don't know if it's directly in the middle. You don't know if you split the wood. And then you're going to hang 200 pounds on it, and you're going to swing on it, right? You don't know if you're going to crack it.
That's true.
I wouldn't roll the dice on it. I would say rip over that ceiling and then put some type of like real backer in it. We're going to go that far with it, if that makes sense. And there's definitely tutorials on that too, like how to hang those safely and stuff. You can even, if you don't want to open up the wall, there's another route here. And that is to make some type of joist-to-joist rig. Do you know what I mean? Because if you make a rig where you have like so instead of ripping open your drywall, you make like a rig that has one block of wood on one side and one block of wood on another side. Almost like a little mini like platform. And then you have a wood connecting the two. Right? But now instead of one eye bolt holding all of that weight, you're having multiple leg screws screwed into the bolt in various different positions, and two different joists that can hold the weight. And I think that's way safer.
Yeah,
that
makes sense.
I mean, that's one route to go. I mean, I know someone out there is going to be like, well, and then I would have to listen to someone else. But there's definitely tutorials online for something like that.
Yeah.
But they do make devices that can go between the joists and joists like that. If you're hanging something that heavy, I would definitely do a lot of research on it. But if it's just plants, you could also, if you really want to go cool with it, make a grid system. If you want to hang multiple plants, right? Find joist to joist like we were just talking about, right? And hang up a grid. Some type of like, almost like the inside of an oven, like a grill, right? You hang up a grid of some kind. Either you make it out of wood or you can buy something online that works. And then you have multiple points that you can hang off for your plants. And that can look really good too. And you can put that as high as you want. And I think that might, A, aesthetically look really fucking cool. And B, it makes it adjustable. Like,
because then you can put it anywhere on that grid.
Because otherwise, you're just stuck wherever the fucking plant is going for that room, and then you get an ugly ass hole. So, someone on our live TikTok stream just shouted out wine glass racks. That's a great wine glass racks are a great one. So I would say that's another one I can throw out there. What do you got any tips for this one, Maggie?
No, honestly, like I said, I just use the toggle bolts with the hooks.
So you're talking with a toggle bolt wall anchor.
But they're called toggle bolt ceiling anchors.
So the ones that like go in, you don't need to make a separate, like there's not a separate component, right? Like it goes in and it just twists out.
Yeah, so the alligator mouth like goes in, it opens up like a normal toggle bolt, but then there on the bottom there's a hook that is attached to the bolt.
Oh, okay.
And then you screw the hook in.
So the toggle bolt goes in first, and then the eye hook or The hook
the
itself
plant hook, yeah.
goes in second.
No, it's
I don't know if I know what you're talking about is why I'm asking.
so it's a hook, and then at the bottom of the hook there's a bolt, and then there's the alligator mouth, right? So it's all you screw the bolt into the hook,
Oh.
and you put it all in at the same time.
Do you just twist?
Yep, you just twist.
You don't need to pre-drill it.
You do pre-drill, yeah, because it's like a regular toggle bolt. You got to make the hole for the toggle bolt part, but the screw, like usually with a toggle bolt anchor, it's just the screw and the toggle bolt. But this,
How big is that hole?
the same. It's the same size as a regular toggle bolt.
See, that's what worries me. So that's what worries me. That's why I'm asking all these questions.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because that hole, I think it can be a barrier for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially if you're like, I don't know if this person is a renter. I don't think they are. But if you are a renter, I would want to find a different solution. Because a toggle bolt wall anchor,
Yeah.
the more that I have advertised them, the more I have like moved away from them. Because I love toggle bolt wall anchors because they're so fucking strong compared to the other ones.
But
and
they're not good for renters.
we always talk about surface area, especially if we're talking about like a plant in the ceiling. You want to have surface area.
Yeah.
A regular wall anchor, like an easy anchor or one of those like red anchors, or even a wall dog. All those very classic wall anchors, all of them have flanges on the side of a screw-based system, right? And those flanges you don't put that above your head because if you slide it in, it's going to slide out too.
Right.
Now with a toggle bolt wall anchor, it spreads out, like its legs spread right out, like it's having a great time on a Saturday night. And it's going to be harder to pull it down because it's covering a lot of surface area behind the wall, right? But with other ones, they're going to slide out. Now, the only thing I hate about that one is because you need such a big fucking hole to insert it through there. Now, they make other ones, I think, that might be more accessible to people. And I would think about the entry point for the hole. I don't know any on the top of my head, but there's got to be something out there that is going to be a smaller hole that splays out. And that would be my suggestion. Did I cover? Is that a good job? Did I do a good job?
I mean, I think you went above and beyond.
Because I think the grid system is where I would go.
Yeah.
If I was, honestly, I kind of want to do it just to hang stuff in my ceiling now.
Yeah.
Because I think the grid system would look pretty cool too, especially if you painted it and decorated it.
On the joist.
The wine glass idea was really cool. Yeah, because you can do joist to joist. And here's the thing. If you want to know where a joist is, you know where they always are? The corner of a room. The side of a wall, like right above a wall. They're right there. And they're, I think, someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think they're also 16 on center. I can't remember if that's true or not. I think they are. I think joists are also 16 on center. And if you don't know what that means when I say 16 on center, I mean that from the middle of a joist to the next middle of another joist, there's 16 inches.
From the center of the joist to the center.
But they're not always, though. I mean, depending on what year it's built, it could be 16 inches between them or 18 inches apart or 22 if they're built in the 1880s. It all depends. But yeah, okay, cool. I think I answered that pretty decently.
So we got, what was it?
Oh my God,
butts
Maggie.
and boobs and books and baths and bolts.
Oh my God, Maggie. I feel like I want you to know, everyone who's listening to this, you didn't see it, but Maggie was barely paying attention for most of this one. I feel like Maggie was thinking about the fifth B the most of this question. Was sitting there on her phone just Googling, what's another word for this? We got to find a B. We got to find a B.
No, not true.
Okay.
Just off the top of my head.
Well, Maggie, I think you're a B. Oh!
A beautiful
I'm the boss.
co-host.
You're the bitch. Okay, anyways. We got 7 B's, everybody. Okay, Maggie, I hope that you are having a good day. Everyone who's listening to this podcast, thank you so much for supporting us as always. We had a really good time today. Honestly, probably too good of a time. And I want to say thank you to the sound engineer, Matthew Allen Haig, for always making us sound decent. I appreciate you.
And thank you to our new employee, Ziggy, for picking out the questions.
Yeah.
Yay.
We have 2 employees besides me and Maggie right now, and it's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
So everyone say thank you to Ziggy for all the wonderful questions today. And I want to say big thank you to everyone who's already bought a book. Again, that's Safe and Sound, a renter's friendly guide to home repair. You can find out more by just Googling it or by going to our website, mercurystardust.com. And as always, everybody, remember, you're worth the time it takes to learn a new skill. Bye-bye. The theme song for the Handy Ma'am Hotline was written by Rhodey Walker. The questions were picked out by our production assistants, Ray and Basil. And the sound was engineered by Matthew Allen Haig. Thank you for listening. See you next time. If you enjoyed this episode of the Handy Ma'am Hotline, you can listen to an even longer version by supporting us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon, $10 or more, you'll be able to get an extra long 30 to 45-minute section every single week. Isn't that amazing? More of me and Maggie. Wow! So thank you so much for all those who already support us, and you too can support us and listen to more on our Patreon. Thank you. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us keep the pirate ship alive by supporting our sponsors, the wonderful iFixit. They fight for your right to repair and makes really cool tools in the process. If you need to fix your phone, laptop, or even a vacuum, iFixit has thousands of parts, tools, and free guides to make your life a little bit easier.
So grab your hammer and nails and paint your nails if you want to. You're worth the time it takes to be you. She'll teach you how to fix your house, how to fix it by yourself. The Trans Handy